Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a really complex situation that's been moving fast. It involves Harvard, obviously a huge name, and the U.S. government.
That's right. Specifically, the Department of Homeland Security and Harvard's certification for enrolling international students. It's called the SEVP certification.
Right, SEVP. And DHS recently told it, which is quite a move.
A very big move. And we've got some key sources to unpack this. The official DHS press release explaining why they did it, plus reports from BBC News and NPR covering the fallout and the legal fight back.
So our goal here is to stick to what these sources tell us. What did DHS actually say were the reasons? What was Harvard's response? What's the impact, especially on students? And, where are things right now?
Exactly. Just the facts as reported in these documents.
Okay, so kicking off with the government's action. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem gave the order. Terminate Harvard's SEVP certification. What did that mean, immediately?
Well, according to the DHS release, the immediate impact is huge. Harvard suddenly couldn't enroll any new foreign students. And the ones already there, they basically had to find another university fast, or they'd lose their legal status to be in the U.S.
That's intense. So why? What reasons did DHS give in that press release? It sounded like there were quite a few.
Oh, yeah. They laid out several points. A big one was holding Harvard accountable for what DHS described as fostering violence, antisemitism, and also coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. The campus climate aspect first.
Right. DHS claimed Harvard allowed, and these are their words, anti-American, pro-terrorist agitators, who they said included some foreign students, to harass and even assault people, specifically mentioning Jewish students.
So safety and anti-Semitism were key stated concerns. What about the CCP connection they mentioned?
That was another major point. The press release alleges Harvard was involved in a coordinated activity of the CCP. They specifically mentioned hosting and training members of a group called the XPCC.
Which the U.S. government has linked to the Uyghur situation.
Exactly. The Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps. DHS claimed these engagements happened as recently as 2024, so that definitely touches on national security flags.
And wasn't there something about Harvard not sharing information?
Yes. DHS stated Harvard brazenly refused to provide required info on alleged criminality and misconduct by some foreign students. They said there was a lawful order, a follow-up request, and Harvard just didn't comply. That was cited as a key justification.
Okay. And the press release didn't stop there, did it? It listed other things.
No, it went on. They listed sort of supporting facts, as they called them. Things like specific examples related to handling anti-Semitism, like a protester charged with assault being chosen as a class marshal, and an internal study apparently showing many Jewish students felt bias.
I remember reading about that, and something about a student speaker.
Yeah, an instance where a Jewish student's story about the Holocaust was supposedly called not tasteful and laughed at. Plus, they noted that some pro-Hamas student groups allegedly remain recognized and funded.
Beyond the campus climate, what else?
DHS also pointed to a jump in crime rates on campus, adopting race-conscious hiring policies, receiving significant foreign funding, over $151 million since early 2020, and research collaborations.
Research collaborations?
Yeah, alleged collaborations with academics in China, possibly funded by an Iranian agent, or involving Chinese universities linked to military tech like aerospace and robotics. They even raised questions about U.S. Defense Department funds potentially being used.
So a whole range of concerns listed. And this wasn't the first action DHS took against Harvard recently.
Correct. The release mentioned this followed DHS terminating some grant funding earlier. And Secretary Noem basically said this whole thing should be a warning to all universities.
Okay, that's a lot from the government side.
Yeah.
So how did Harvard hit back? What do the BBC and NPR reports tell us about their response?
Well, Harvard immediately called the SEVP revocation unlawful and retaliatory. Pretty strong words.
Retaliatory for what?
Well, we'll get to that. They really emphasized their international students, over 6,700 from more than 140 countries, like 27% of their student body. They said these students enriched the university and the U.S.
And they argued this DHS action was damaging.
Absolutely. They said it threatens serious harm and fundamentally undermines Harvard's academic and research mission. The reports also note Harvard had already said they were taking steps on anti-Semitism, but they felt the government was trying to control the university's intellectual conditions.
So that retaliatory claim, did that connect to anything specific.
Yes. And this is important context from the sources. Harvard had actually sued the administration back in April.
Oh, okay. Over what?
Initially over those earlier government demands. And in court, Harvard argued this SEVP revocation was basically payback for that lawsuit. They called it a blatant violation of the First Amendment, punishing them for refusing government demands about how they run the place, governance, curriculum, even the ideology of faculty and students.
So Harvard sees this as directly linked to them pushing back legally earlier.
That's how they framed it, according to the reports.
Okay, so DHS pulls the plug. Harvard fires back legally and rhetorically. What was the immediate effect on the ground, especially for those thousands of international students?
Chaos, pretty much. The reports describe fear and frustration, students' futures just thrown in limbo. One student was quoted saying they felt dehumanized, like poker chips in a bigger game. Real uncertainty about staying in the country.
That sounds awful. But then the courts got involved very quickly.
Extremely quickly. A federal judge, Allison Burroughs, issued a temporary restraining order, a TRO. That essentially hit pause on the administration's move to revoke the certification.
So a temporary reprieve.
Exactly. Harvard's president, Alan Garber, called it a critical step for the students. And the sources noted a hearing was scheduled right after that to see about extending the order.
And just to bring it right up to the minute, after that judge blocked the move, former President Trump weighed in.
He did, yeah. On Truth Social, he mentioned some students' home countries being not at all friendly, claimed students pay nothing, and basically repeated the administration's line that they want to know who these students are and Harvard isn't cooperating.
So the pressure is still on from that side. Stepping back from the day-to-day blows, why is this whole situation something you, listening, should maybe pay attention to?
Well, it's not just a fight between one university and one government department, is it? These sources really lay bare this fundamental tension. Is a university primarily about academic freedom, global exchange, like Harvard argues? Or is it, an entity that has to prioritize national security compliance above all, as DHS seems to imply?
Right. It really highlights how things like political clashes, campus safety concerns, national security worries, they all intersect right on campus and directly impact students' lives. It puts that whole dynamic between government oversight and university independence under a microscope.
Definitely. And the global nature of education today adds another layer.
So maybe the thing to think about is this. You've got the government pushing on security and compliance, Harvard pushing back, citing academic freedom and alleging retaliation, and a judge stepping in temporarily. What does this whole episode tell us about how that relationship between Washington and higher education might be changing here in the U.S., something to chew on as this story continues to develop?